I don't know, and unknown. And
Right.
if you never lived in it, you just check unknown all across, but you still have to complete the document. The only ones that really get a free pass on this are usually typically foreclosures, and I want to see some of the trustees inside of our trust itself. And even then, I tell those people, you should still fill this out and still say, I don't know.
Right.
Because the bottom line is, if you know anything on this document, it should be checked off, anything at all. So that's one thing that I find interesting, and that's a good way when you're talking to someone says they don't have to. They're like, why did they put if you've lived here or not then? Because they're basically telling you that those people still have to complete it as well. First section of the seller's disclosure has basically the typical components of the home, and basically requires the seller to go through to say, yes, I have it, or no, I don't, or I really don't know. And then it's followed by if you do have it, are there any issues with it? So this is the first component to the seller's disclosure that's basically saying, are these items currently working as far as you know it? Right. So you're going to find what's awesome about this document, and it's been perfected over the years, is that this is leaving a seller no way out. There is no way for a seller to get past something going wrong inside of their house without going through this document. And they've gotten better over the years. Like, for instance, we're going to get to the flood in a second. It's always been in here, has the house flooded? Well, over the years, people would define a flood as a natural event. Some of the worst floods we have are man-made, plumbing or, a refrigerator line busting. Right. So they got smart over the years, and then they started putting, has there ever been water penetration in the house? This document will not let you walk away. Right. We talk about foundation here in a minute. Yep. It'll specifically say, have you had foundation ever? It's not saying, do you have a foundation issue now? It's saying, have you ever had a foundation issue? Does that with the roof, too. It's not just letting you answer on, oh, it looks fine to me right now, or it's working fine right now.
And you'll find homeowners will try to get away with the flooding thing.
Oh, all the time. In fact, I think that's the number one thing they try to get away with.
For you newer agents out there, just remember, buyers are going to need insurance on that place, and insurance companies do a check.
Yeah. Right.
And they'll find out. So
if there's ever been a claim, you're going to have to explain that at some other point.
We've seen personal issues inside the firm when it comes to a house, whether it's flooded or not. And I'm pretty definite on this, especially for anybody that watches the show. If I don't know anything about that, all I can tell you is what's on this document. Right. I cannot answer for what a seller did, what they purported to do, what they might have didn't tell us. All I can say is what's on here. And just so you know, from the general public side, that's all I'm legally responsible to. Right. Outside of if someone else tells me outside of it, I'm required to tell you. Yeah. But as far as written proof, this is all I got. This is all I can go by. And for those of you that think you can go back on the real estate agent and say, well, they didn't tell me, good luck on that, because this is about the only thing that proves to us whether we knew it or not. So you are barking up the wrong tree. We get people all the time that sit there and they send these letters to us, these false claims to us saying, you're responsible for this. I'm like, we are not responsible for the least bit of that. Yep. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. From the court standpoint, they can't stand it when you do that either. Right. When you go through there and they look at there, they go, how you expect them to know that? Well, I just know. The court doesn't go by, I just know. And every seller thinks that, well, you knew too. I'm like, why would I know? Why the hell would I continue to list the house if it's flooded?
It's as if we can walk in a house and just know whether, something has happened in the 15-year history of the house. And that's not true.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
We walk in and we put it on the market.
Yeah, and I love the seller's disclosure for that, because that's one of the best protections for us, telling you, look, they didn't put that there's been any flood issues yet. I'm not aware there's any flood issues. I like how they think I'm also aware. I went and did the listing appointment. That's the one time I've ever gone there. Right. All I have is this, well, you knew. I'm like, knew what? It's the first time I even came over to this house. Right.
And if you walk in there the first time and your feet get wet.
Yeah. That's a clue. That's a clue.
So we do this with foundation people too.
Yeah.
Right.
The only way I know there's a foundation issue, if I'm talking to him, I'm leaning like this when I'm talking to him. I think you guys got an issue in here. There's something wrong with the foundation. That's all I can do.
Like you got a little dance in you there, bro.
Moonshine.
Dad, can you dance?
I told you I had to stand up just a little bit.
I like that.
So we're looking at some of the components. We're about to go on break here in just a minute, but I want to talk about some of the structures here before we get into some of the more important things that we see. These are basic things in there. It talks about whether your microwave's working, whether you have cable TV or not, propane versus gas. That's a big one that a lot of people like to look at. But these are the generic things inside of the house. I will tell you one thing on here that's different these days. someone will put smoke detector and later in the disclosure ask, are they working?
That's tricky.
Yeah.
That's
in compliance.
It says, are they in compliance? And everybody always answers,
I don't know.
yes. So, I wish they would answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Because I don't know is actually the correct answer, because you don't know whether that's certified by the city, because every city is different with it.
Right.
And there's been a lot of changes. So
all I know is they go off in the middle of the night while you're sleeping.
That's
God,
right.
Whoever
that.
did that should be shot. Whoever,
Hate that.
whoever
They never go
programmed
off at noon.
it should
No.
be banned unless it's a real emergency. They can't go through it. Y'all, we're going to continue this. I always want to talk about our sponsors before we go on our break, but we're going to continue a deep conversation about seller's disclosure for the next 30 minutes. You know, we are sponsored, very happy to be sponsored by BPG Inspections. These are folks that are owned by Fidelity National Finance. They are out of Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. They give us a same-day report, which is great because we are in a short time frame to decide on whether we have any issues or not. So we love to get that report on the same day. One of the things that I personally like, especially being a supervising broker, is the fact that we go through and they have color-coded reports on these inspections. So these inspections can be 30 to 40 pages long. On these types of inspections, they actually take away, they'll do blue items for us, which means, it's not per code, but it's nothing I'm really concerned about. And then they'll do red highlights to where they're like, hey, look, that's something I probably would look at. When you review probably 10 or so reports a day, that's nice to have because it lets me get through it quick and I don't have to sit there and review the entire report. They do an enhanced home inspection repair estimate for all agents within 24 to 48 hours. And they have pre-listing inspections, home, commercial, WDO, pool and spa, septic, and sprinkler. Our personal guy that we use in the Dallas-Fort Worth area out of the SWR group at Keller Williams is Martin Cooley. We give choices for all of our clients. We never say you should use this one person. We always refer at least 3, but we will say that a majority of our clients over the years have been very pleased with the service that Martin Cooley does. He's a great inspector. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for years.
Good looking too.
He's good looking too. He's laughing if he's probably watching that show. You can reach Martin at 817-401-3240. Again, that's 817-401-3240. And anywhere else in the state of Texas, 1-800-285-3001. Again, that's 1-800-285-3001. If you're an agent and you use the code AC2020, you can get a $25 referral code. You tell them that the Smoker Broker sent you. We'll be back in just about 4 or 5 minutes.
3, 2, 1. KVGIRadio.com.
Y'all have really just opened my bubble and just...
KVGI Radio brings you conversation and entertainment. Be sure to follow us on social media. Who streams the best talk shows? We do.
listening to KVGIRadio.com. Streaming live from the KVGI studios in Frisco, Texas. Live without limits.
It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas
points.
residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome back to Smoker Broker Radio. We are in the middle of the conversation about seller's disclosure. Like I said, really important one for most agents and most sellers out there because it's the accuracy of the document that really causes us issues. So we were talking about some of the mainstream things in there. Then it gets into the bottom half where it starts focusing in on some of the things that have complementary things with it. For instance, your air condition. Right. So it asks you not only do you have an air condition, but then it says, is it electric? Is it gas? This is a common question that we get where someone fills this out and they check, yes, they have an air condition, but they don't fill out the follow-up questions on it. Yep. And then when we send it off, the other agent's like, well, hey, look, is it gas or is it, now we're going to have to redo this. So, you know, as a new agent, make sure that when you get it back, they filled it out completely because they always tend to forget something.
Sometimes I think they don't know.
That or maybe
even if they pay Atmos for gas, they don't remember whether their AC
That's
is.
true.
I will make a comment. It is amazing
It's
to
true.
me how much of the general public does not know whether they're on electric
They
or
just
gas.
pay their bill.
Yeah. Oh, and it's these days it can be on auto pay of some sort, and so they don't ever. I am continually amazed at how much people forget about the history with the house and how much they don't know, and you have to ask questions sometimes.
That's a good point. Again, that's why these guys are on this show, because we don't script this, and as we go across it, because we do this day to day, important events come up. So she just mentioned one that's a really big deal, and it's probably the heart of the real issues we have with this document. She talked about a seller who truly did forget.
Right.
Now, this does happen.
Yep.
Especially if it's been a long time. There are sellers that are really not trying to deceive you.
They just
life
is
can't
busy.
remember. And unfortunately, this is where we get problems because then something does come up and they're like, well, another repair person comes in and said, well, you know, we fixed that about 5 years ago. And then they go back and they're literally like, oh, my God, I totally forgot.
Or 15. Yeah, I get the, I forgot, or a lot.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Things.
They do
but
forget.
they do forget.
And if you're a new agent, here's a nice little thing for you to do. Take one of these, print it out, a blank one, and fill it out on your own house.
Yeah.
Yeah, see what you would do. That's a really
That's
good
right.
idea.
Yeah, it is. And you will be surprised what you don't know about your own house.
Right.
But
And
you'll
actually
find
makes
out.
you more confident
Actually,
explaining it.
Yeah.
When I first got my license, I kind of did that with ours, and we had some sort of plumbing issue within a year or two after we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's been at that time, 12 years ago.
Right.
I had no clue what that was about. It got fixed, and that's
Yeah.
it. But
So that's the other issue too, and that's where this document tries to perfect it. Somebody might say, "Well, we repaired the foundation 12 years ago, so it's working fine." That's why the question went back and said, "Yeah, but did you ever do it?"
Right.
It used to
Right.
be like, "Is it fine?" Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, but
Right.
they had foundation work. Somebody would have wanted to know that. This document doesn't let you get away with it.
And when
It
you
makes
see
it-
that, make sure you get their paperwork if you're listing their
Yes.
home.
you're going to be asked for it one way or the
Yeah.
other. So
Yeah.
you might as well go ahead and get ahead of it.
Yep.
Let's see where some of the other things. So we were talking about some of the areas where they get confused, like they get to a water softener. They're like, "What's a water softener?"
Yeah.
And
and
You're almost like,
and
if you
I'm
don't
basically-
know, then you don't have one.
That's right. That's exactly what I
I've
say.
answered that way for 20 years. I still say, I'm like, if you don't know it, you don't have one
Right.
of them.
Well, yeah, I had a lake house in Lake Kiowa, and they all have soft water.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
And how do you answer that?
Yeah.
That's right. They either know, they should know if they have that
Yeah,
type of system. in
exactly.
Are you
place,
buying
right?
bags of salt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good indicator right there.
Well, especially in our weather.
Right.
It's a northern joke, folks.
So they also start talking about the water supply. This one's tricky too. So a lot of people are on city water,
Mhm.
but some of the rural areas are on well. Some people are on both city and well.
Yep.
And then you get to what really becomes confusing are the co-ops and the mud districts,
Yep.
the municipal
Yeah.
Trinity
utility
Falls,
districts.
Yep.
You know, I'm very forthcoming on the show. I'm very genuine up front. I talk about my goods and my bads. I was out in the field this past weekend. I actually showed some houses,
Woohoo.
yeah, about time, So a lot of times I like to go out every once in a while so I can remember if there's any issues. So I was shown on the northern side of the Frisco area in a Prosper and Salina, and they had a lot of these public improvement districts, these PIDs. And so I sold in that area before it even, I used to hunt up in those areas where there was nothing, so I never worried much about it. Well, now you go into these areas, there's a public improvement district where they're asking the buyer, even a new builder, well, you're going to have to pay this. And it's like 25 grand. And it goes into your monthly payment.
Yep.
Or you can pay. I like the one say, well, you can pay it up front. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
sure.
not paying it up front.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'll
But-
get that back when I sell.
Yeah,
Right.
right? So this has become a concern because a lot of agents and a lot of sellers don't realize that they're actually in
Yep.
that
Right.
mud district. So this has become a touchy issue where someone goes, thank God the title companies usually pull it up and go, well, hey,
Right.
look, y'all realize that.
Yeah, title saves your butt on that.
But
That-
sometimes it can be too late and it
Yeah.
becomes really uncomfortable. So this is a new issue. Well, it's not a new issue, but it's becoming one that's
More
a bigger
prevalent.
problem. Yeah, because
Yeah.
up there on the north east side of town,
It's growing.
there are more of these.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how
Trinity Falls is a big mud one.
I just don't know how they're getting away with it. I don't know how they're not. The developer, you do it, you're paying for it.
I mean, they do disclose it really well up front when you're building. with
They
them,
have
but-
to because they've been sued left and
Yeah.
right for not
Because,
disclosing it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, if you're not setting that aside.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna tell you. So here's a big one too. When it talks about a roof type, so this is probably, if I had to say, one of the top 5 issues on the seller's disclosure, it's going to be the roof. So majority of the people, they always, when it says roof type,
Pointy.
yeah, they're like pointy. See why Brent runs my show for me sometimes too. Pointy.
The smoker broker.
There you go.
So pointy. Pointy is not the correct answer. But most people don't know what their roof's made of. Majority are the roofs are composition roofs.
Right.
But not everybody has them. Some people have ceramic tiles. Some people have metal roofs. Now,
Yep.
it's just like you said earlier. Most of those people know that they have that type of roof. But
Right.
when they get to this, they're always like, I don't know what to put. So once again, you kind of got to be careful. You're like, well, I really can't answer for you.
Let's have a phone call.
Yeah, and there's a borderline where you say, well, a lot of them are composition,
Mhm.
and you're not really telling them that, but even then, you're kind of walking the
Right.
ground of, did I tell them it was composition? And that's
Your
what they're
neighbor's
supposed
is
to do there.
composition. I'm just tell you any of that.
Yeah, yeah. Like you point out, that neighbor has a composition roof. That's actually a good way because you're not saying I didn't tell them, but they go, well, my roof's the same. I'm like, well,
Well, then you can
that's up to you.
1 and 1 plus 2.
And really what I want to know is how old it is.
What? So she took the words right out of my mouth. I love it too. That's exactly the thing. So
That gets
as an
left out a
agent,
lot.
now this is important for you as a new agent, or I don't care, new, however long you've been doing it. When you get the seller's disclosure, I'm going to tell you something, especially in Texas. When you get that, at that age, is over like,
10.
shit, I think
10 or
5
12.
now. I'm almost 5. But if it's over 10, you better damn well believe that roof is probably not good in the state of Texas. It is very rare that somewhere in Dallas, Fort Worth, or anywhere in the state of Texas has not had some type of hailstorm that
Within
was
10
damaging
years,
within
yeah.
10 years.
And I have had it up to my eyebrows over insurance adjusters who come out every so often to look at your roof and tell the homeowner
Yeah.
that the roof is fine.
Right.
And then when we put the house on the market and an inspection is done, and then we bring out a real roofer
Yeah.
who's going, man, this has been shot
Yeah,
for
this
a
thing is
long
bashed to hell
time."
left and right.
And I'm just going, come on, the
Yeah.
insurance people should have known better.
Yeah, you should have. It's not hard to inspect a roof either. In fact, they don't inspect the whole roof. They go up there, they take like an 8x8 quadrant. They look at the dents and any granules, and they can tell if it was hit there, the
Right.
rest of the roof is trash. They don't
Right.
have to go through the whole roof and say this thing. They can tell.
Yeah, and just because it doesn't have missing shingles or gaping holes doesn't mean it isn't
Right.
leaking on some level. It doesn't
Right.
have to be leaking all the way in. Anyway, roof, you might as well just get you
Yeah,
know.
but as an agent, when you're getting into
Yeah.
it, a lot of times the first time I see that, I immediately call the other agent, and I'm like, hey, I want to know, is that correct? Because there's no way, especially if I know the area's had a hailstorm, I'm like, there's no way that roof could be there. I go, I don't want to walk into this and find out we have to negotiate for this roof when we
Right.
knew damn good and well it was going to have to be replaced from the beginning. So I want to
Right.
start off before I even get in this negotiation that this is something that has been handled or it's going to be handled, because we're not going to work this into, oh, well, we'll do the roof for you. You already should have done the roof. That's your responsibility. And, the roof is really sacred in the real estate transaction.
Right.
Because quite honestly, if the roof isn't in good condition, the insurance company will not insure that roof. And we can get into a longer conversation about an insurance company that says they'll insure you, and then they come in 30 days after you closed and
Right.
find that one's scary. You talk about
That's
a longer
that
show.
one is no fun.
Woo.
You
I've
know,
had that happen before.
you
That
can
is-
tell you're a veteran real estate agent when you get all kinds of sizzly goosebumps because the house has a new roof and
Yeah.
a good foundation.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier to
Right,
deal
you
with.
ever
I
had
mean,
sizzling goosebumps?
Yeah. And if it's
I'll
got
see a
a
doctor for that.
if it has a new
We have
AC,
roof disease.
we see something else that some of the older houses. Sometimes we see where a roofer was so lazy they just left the original one and they just went over on top of it.
Oh,
It was
Yeah.
an overlay.
Yeah.
We see that in older houses typically. That's not something you want, because a lot of times you're going to have to go in there and clean that mess up, and that can be expensive too.
And for the newer people that are doing it, you can negotiate backwards and have that homeowner, file a claim, get a new
Right.
roof. You can still move out, but it's got to be assurances that the
So
roof will be put on.
That's become
Mm-hmm.
annoying over the years. So the roof is one of the repairs that actually probably will be paid for by somebody else, but you still have to listen to the seller bitch about the deductible. I'm like, it's not my
Yeah.
deductible.
Mhm.
It's yours. I love it, and I'm not serious when I say that. When the other agent goes, well, if y'all get the deductible, we'll put a new one on. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I going to do
Right,
your problem?
right.
This is your problem.
You've
You
got-
can't sell that house without this
Right.
unless it's a cash buyer.
that's
Yeah.
Don't sit there
yes.
and tell me I'm paying the deductible. Like
That's-
you're doing me
yeah.
a favor.
Nobody can insure it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're the one that's paying that. But you have
Yeah.
people out there. The
Right.
nerve, you're just like, yeah.
Yeah.
You got anything else you want me to do for you? You need oil change, a new brick or something?
Somehow sometimes sellers just don't want to put not even one more dollar into a house that they're already
And see, that's
leaving.
the problem. It's okay if you're selling your house at a point where you're like, I just want to sell, but you have to know there are some details to this
Right.
that we can't get by. If we have a finance buyer, we cannot buy that roof if it's damaged. It has to be fixed.
And I think we always say this on
Foundation too.
the Smoker Broker shows. If you're new and you don't know, talk to Robert. Call him up.
Amen.
That's what we do. I mean,
Yeah.
that's our day-to-day stuff, and that is what we're doing here. We are trying to make sure that you understand. This show was built around making sure that you
Right.
know what it is you're doing. It's not just agents; it's for the general public.
And
You know,
everybody sitting here has made every mistake in the book.
absolutely. That's how you get
I'll
better.
speak for yourself, Alan.
Okay.
I tell everybody, you really want to be a good agent, you need the bad to happen to you, because
Yep.
that's how you learn. You want to
Yeah.
get really good at it, you're like, yeah, I've done that before. You
Ha
do
ha,
not
Deb. Ha,
want to do
Deb.
that. Deb's had her kids.
I call Robert at the drop of
She
a
knows.
hat.
She is very good about catching it before it gets worse, though. That is a true statement. She knows. She can sense it. She's
And
got a good nose
I'm
for
not a
that.
spring chicken. I've owned a house or two, and
Yeah.
boy, have we done it wrong a few times. You know,
Deb is really good. She really is good at saying, I sense this is going to be an issue. And she's
Yeah.
usually right that we're heading that way. But, these things in here, I find it, I'm biased because it's my show, but I think that any of the agents that watch it, half the stuff you should send to the seller. It'd make your job a whole lot easier if they watch this, and your buyer too, and said, oh, I didn't realize that's, watch this show. It pretty much tells you And it's not me acting like I'm just trying to push you around or telling you something stupid.
And you're always going to run into that situation where they want you to touch it. We've talked about this, but senior citizens. I mean, I had an 85-year-old. Her husband died.
Yeah.
She had no idea about the money or any of that stuff, but had to sell the house. And I can't see very well, so I had to have called one of her kids.
Yeah,
got him up here from Waco.
Power of attorney, something. Somebody has to do this.
Has to do it. You do not touch it.
Right. And we did talk about this, but you're right. We didn't go to that level. There are times where I legitimately cannot fill this document out. We need to find someone who can.
Yeah.
Because it has to be filled out by someone that has any ties to that actual dwelling, even if it does have to be a child, a sibling, or whatever.
Yep.
Always follows that conversation with, again, the first section, is there anything wrong that you know about? You have to disclose. If any of those items we've been mentioning, is there anything wrong with them? You have to check. Yes, and here's what the rule of thumb is, even if you're hesitant, put it down.
Tell us. Just
always
tell us.
Disclose.
Yep. And you get some heads up on that. If you're going to do a listing and you walk in there and you've already got the listing and you walk in and do the first walkthrough, I think one of the first questions a lot of people ask is, what are your concerns in selling your home?
Yeah.
And they take you to the areas that are what I would call endangered.
Yeah.
And then you got the seller disclosure, and there you go. They'll admit to it, but they don't always put it on that paper.
Well, I tell people, if you have if it makes you go like this in your stomach, gives you, then find a way to put it on this paper. And if you need another piece of paper, we'll add it.
So I'll give you an example of what they're talking about, and it's a concerning one. I'm going to jump ahead because it's one of the core conversations today, and I don't want to miss it, but they're blending it in right now, so we might as well talk about it. So when we're watching a seller fill out this document, this is literally what it looks like. Although with the DocuSign these days in the manual, they usually do it on their own. We don't see it as much, which is a downfall of the industry. It's a shame we don't actually see them. But when we used to watch them, this is how they'd fill this document out.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, Robert's pretending to be
Yes,
filling
on
it
the
out.
radio. I'm always sorry. I forget we have radio and YouTube. So I'm pretending to write. I'm writing really fast. But they'll get to one question on here. It's like on the third or fourth page, and their pencil will do this. They're going so fast, and then they're like,
yeah.
That means that there's an issue. I'm going to tell you the one it is. It's when they get to where, has there been any type of, you don't have to disclose any type of natural cause death or any suicide, but if it's happened, it makes the person take a pause there.
Right.
Which means we know that now there's probably been some type of death in the house. Now, this is probably the most interesting piece for anybody who's outside the real estate industry.
Haunted.
And for not haunting, but that is a concern for anybody else out there, but especially the guys that are doing this as well. We do not have to disclose a natural death. We do not have to disclose a suicide. We certainly are not ever to disclose any type of HIV type of death. The only things that we can disclose is if there was a murder or if there was a material defect in the house that caused the death. We're not required to disclose anything else. Now, this obviously presents a huge problem for groups of people out there because some people don't like the fact that someone has died in the house before. We're not here to debate on someone's beliefs, religious beliefs, or whatever. We don't do that here. It's a fact. There are some people that don't like when someone's died in a house. The real estate commission doesn't acknowledge that. They acknowledge it's a house and it's for sale. We don't have to disclose those types of things. There are houses where and y'all, if you don't think this comes up, 15% of our deals have some type of natural death or suicide. So you're not going to be able to skip over it. And I will admit, it's painful when you have to address it. It just brings it all back up, and it's horrible. It's one of the not so fun things that we do. But when it comes to us being out there, we don't have to disclose those things. That's not our responsibility. There are people, though, that think we should. Okay, and that's the big piece. And I teach this a lot, especially at Champion School of Real Estate. I do this quite a bit when we get into this piece of it. You're not required to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right thing to do.
Right.
Now, here's you have to be somewhat of an academic in real estate to understand this, because there's two issues that we're concerned about. The law of agency and then just common law itself. Because a lot of people forget, let's say I believe that you should tell anybody that's coming in there, if they ask, you should tell them that there was a death. Well, what if my seller says, I do not want you to disclose that? If I go against them and do what I think is right, now I've violated the law of agency, which means I can lose my license for disobeying my client and not doing what they told me to do. But from an ethical standpoint, is that right? Is it really, do you really, we teach you to be ethical from day one. From day one, we teach you to be ethical. Do you really believe that if someone's fearful that there was a death in there, and we know the death's in there, and we're prepared not to tell them, how ethical is that? This is the worst thing that we do, because we are put in a catch-22, because we know they probably should be told that. But we're also told by our client that we probably can't do that. That's on here. This causes issues for us. It's one of the worst things. Now, this is the part that I love. I've had a lot of, and again, this was the core section of the seller's disclosure. This is one that most people have terrible trouble with. I have a lot of brokers when I teach on this subject. They'll debate with me. See, I'm of the opinion that, and I said opinion, that that if someone inquires about that, they should be told. Now, if I'm going to do that, I'm also of the opinion I'm going to get my client to give me permission to do that before I tell them.
Right.
Well, I mean, I remember you probably 10 years ago telling us about if there was, say, a suicide on the property and those people are showing and you have not disclosed it.
Yeah.
Well, if a neighbor's outside saying, hey, did you hear about what happened
Brent's
here?
talking about, are they going to eventually find out?
Right.
You better damn well believe. And it's usually like 5 minutes after they close.
Oh, yeah.
They're moving in.
Yeah.
I'm like, where were you like 3 days ago?
Well, that's where the scary movies start, right there. Was they're moving in.
Yeah.
Right.
The strangest situation in a very nice neighborhood, I showed a home, and it had been previously a meth lab.
Yeah. This comes up. This is actually a good
Did
one,
they leave any product behind for you?
I tell you what.
The ammonia that's in the foundation.
Yeah.
You could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, the minute you walked in,
it's terrible for respiratory illness.
Yeah, not good, but it happens.
By the way, he just brought up one of the ones that's a material defect to the house that comes up. That's one of them.
That's a biggie.
Because if you don't, and you have someone come in who has horrific asthma or any other type of respiratory illness, they could actually die because
And if you
that.
think it's just in the small homes, it's the people with money that have nice. Right next door, they're cooking up some brew.
You are right about that.
And that's where we were.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you've got, this is a terrible issue for all of us. It's in the disclosure that they don't have to disclose. In fact, it tells them they don't have to disclose these types of deaths. But the thing that I always find interesting is that there are a lot of brokers that when I tell them I'm actually asking my client to disclose, it's not like I'm going to go on a bulletin board and say, death here. But I actually, if they're going to ask me, I'm not going to, look, here's how this looks if somebody asks me, if I've been told by my client not to disclose the death, this is what it looks like if somebody else asked me, hey, I heard somewhere that someone died in here. Do you know if anybody died in here? I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that. I, in essence, just said, yeah, I just can't tell you. So they're going to know either by my response.
Next.
Or some type of, next, one way or another, they're going to know. So we always try to tell the seller that, look, it's probably best, because some people don't like this. We try to put you in their same position. Would you want to do that? Would you want to know it? Now, I will be very forthcoming with them, too. There is no doubt I will tell them, and you have to pay attention. I will tell them there's a very good chance you're going to lose money by telling them that. Yep. I am being their agent. I'm telling them what's going to happen. They are here to help them make money, and I'm point blank telling them, by telling them that could actually lose money on the house. And I have a lot of brokers that will fight with me on this.
Yeah.
They'll be like, you shouldn't do that. But my argument is this. Some of those people still go ahead and take legal action when they find out that this happened, because they believe it was a disclosure.
Yeah, and that's why the bottom line needs to be for any realtor, you tell the truth. You don't fudge.
But you get the permission from you can't just tell the truth without.
Absolutely. But if you're representing your client and you're telling the truth, based on the representation, you can't go wrong.
Let them know what could happen if they don't.
Right.
Yeah. But here's the other point too. When these things, anybody can sue for anything. Believe me, they do. Most people sue for whatever the hell reason they want to.
Yeah.
But in this particular one, and I love teaching on this subject, you have brokers that'll tell you till they're blue in the face. They'll be like, that it's specifically not our requirement to disclose those things. Why would you even tell somebody that? I'm like, are you sure about that? Because there's plenty of law cases out there where the judge has in fact ruled that under certain circumstances, which are much longer than to discuss for this show, they should have disclosed. There is no writing in any legal document that says we have to do. These are agency laws you're fighting with. But now you got someone who's in a court of law that's saying you should have told them. These are two different fields. And here's the thing I always love to tell somebody. You know why they call a judge a judge?
It's because he gets to make decisions.
They judge.
That's right.
They judge. They use their decision on whether the law was been upheld or whether it's not. It doesn't mean it's factual. They use their understanding. They judge whether you should have told them. So it's not a guarantee when you just flat out say, well, I didn't disclose it because my client didn't disclose it. That is not 100% correct. And that's something that this show is very valuable on because you're taught that way. Help us mainstream brokers that tell them not to. I'm like, you better watch it.
So
Not
if you're a new agent, what would you say with all your experience would be the number one mistake that people make on these disclosures? Is there something that's higher than the others?
Well, this one's a terrible one. Now, this one's not number one because it doesn't come up all the time.
Right.
But when it does, it's awful. I would say where they start, what we started the show off with, when they're with the description. When they're giving a description and they're like, hey, I don't know how to word this. Like, let's talk about this because we have about 7 more minutes. This is another main one. There were a few things I wanted to make sure. This is the last one I wanted to make sure we got in, and it flows to your question.
Good.
And actually, now that I think about it, this could be one of the number one issues as well. So let's talk about water, okay? Water's a big disclosure.
Yeah.
Water causes a lot of damage. It can have fatal effects depending on how that water's been pushed in there too. So let's talk about that. So you can have a natural flood where you have an excessive rain. You could be in a floodplain where it's possible that you already know that can happen. You might not even be in a floodplain, but you have a record rain, which we see that sometimes, which is absurd. We've had people before come back, hey, y'all should have disclosed that house floods. I'm like, it rained 8 inches in an hour that day. That is the first time that's ever happened
flooded
on the record.
Yep.
And now you're telling me I'm responsible for that? I'm like, I can't control God now. He handles the water in here. But you have people that do that. So you have a natural flood, okay, one that's generated by outside effects. The one we see more often is a water penetration, okay, where this happens a lot. The water line, or not that one too. That one's awful too. The water line on the freezer pops up. You leave that morning, and it fizzles and it pops like an hour after you left, and then all day long.
Right.
Water is running onto the floor. So you come back, and this is usually not fun. When you get to the door, you see water coming out of
That's
it. That's
never a good sign.
So you get in there, and you got about this much water on the ground. So most people, their immediate reaction is, oh, my God, finding out the source, putting a stop to it, and they start getting the water out. So they're sweeping and sucking, suction, doing whatever. Shop vacs, getting it out, and then they'll make the attempt to dry it. Now, some people will be like, it's fine. It's all good. Y'all, if water has sat on any type of floor surface for more than 2 or 3 hours, it's absorbed into that surface. It has not gone away. So especially if carpet. You're done. If it's carpet, that water is in there.
Yeah.
The hardwood will kind of rat you out because it'll start popping. And so we can tell if that's happened. So those people, these are the ones we have problems with a lot of times. They'll get to water penetration and they'll be like, oh no, I've never had any issue with that. Because they feel, because they dried it up really quick and they put the fans on it and they threw some bleach down, everything's been removed.
Yeah. And it used to just say, have you ever had flooding? Which says natural disaster to
that's
people.
Not a natural disaster.
Yeah.
Those things, you mentioned the water heater.
Right. Water heater.
Why any builder ever put the water heater upstairs
still
in
do
a
it.
house, which is moronic. They should be shot.
That and the line to the toilet.
Yeah.
Why
is it on a north wall that's on a front or something too?
They do. There's plastic lines. It's not that much more expensive for a builder to put a metal line in there.
Yeah.
We actually, our lovely builder put plastic lines in, and we happened to be home and heard it pop. That line. And so we were able to turn it off within minutes. But if we had not been home, that would have flooded the whole downstairs.
One of my favorites, this helps you on the inspection side too. A lot of times you'll have so they have this drip pan. The drip pan's amusing because it's supposed to let you know that there's an issue. Let me tell you, when that water heater breaks, there ain't nothing stopping that water. It's coming.
Yep.
Hey,
Deb,
Deb,
30 or 60 gallon tank that's being dumped in.
Did I ever tell you who the listing agent was on the home I live in?
Mm-mm. Oh, yes, I have heard that story.
It's this man right here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Hey, Dad. So my dad's here today. He's out the back. He don't want to be on the thing. So that's kind of ironic.
I'm his client.
He bought Jim Dreywitz's home. He bought Jim Dreywitz's home years ago. How ironic, right? Yeah, he's lived in it ever since then, too.
Oh, you know him too?
Yeah, he's a good friend
Cool.
of Dad.
Oh, awesome. Well, tell him we said hey.
Well, no, remember, he passed a while
He
back.
took all of his trophies with him.
Do you want to talk about Seller's Shield?
Yeah, Brent, actually, we got 3 minutes. Fill us in. I'm really bad with that.
Yeah, so one of the benefits we have with Keller Williams is we have access to Seller Shield. It's a service that we can, it sends out the seller's disclosure to our clients. It's handled by a bunch of lawyers, so it actually walks them through each question step by step and explains what each thing is, and will not let them move on until they've answered that question. So they fill it out 100% completely. Cool. It's digital, and then you get a copy emailed to you at the end. So
nice.
Like you were talking about, they'd put in air conditioner, but they wouldn't fill in gas or electric. Well, it makes them do it all the way through.
Well, and talk about the protection side.
Well, I mean,
us.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, they offer, plans where they can pay for it. And I've kind of advised, don't have to worry about that. Yeah, you do have to pay extra for that protection side. But,
right.
I mean, it really protects us, though, because they're answering everything. We don't have to explain
You're not
anything to
there.
them. We're not there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's
no
it's
touch.
easy.
Yeah,
it's really a great service.
No touch, no
yeah, it's
liability.
become another protection in a world that needs protection. Basically forcing that seller, hey, you do it, you answer it. These are the things that keeps us out of it, which is what we try for the beginning. It's funny. I keep teaching this, and I keep forgetting that exists because it's really fairly new to us.
It is new.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's something that's become really important. There's just no easy way to get past some of these disclosures, but the bottom line is, in the end, disclose. If you're hesitating, let me tell you, if you're not trying to high water penetration, you're going to almost always get caught. I've seen it where the seller said there was no issue, and then they ended up having a child that had bad asthma, and the child got really sick. So they went back in there and they brought some old people out, and they go, we were out here 4 years ago. The same inspector that came out.
Ouch.
And then the neighbor said, well, yeah, that whole house flooded. They'll catch you. They always do. There's always a way to catch you. Cannot hide these types of things. And the penalty is brutal.
Right.
The penalty is brutal. I mean, you're talking about a lot of money, and God forbid if someone died because of your lack of disclosure.
Well, a lot of times, too, it looks better to a buyer if you're over-disclosing. They look at that and they say, they're being over-honest.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
I
love
that.
that.
Goes to the foundation. I used to think a house that had foundation was just horrible. I'd almost rather a house with a foundation issue because at least it's been looked at and repaired.
Here in our area, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah, people are so fearful of that. I'm like, that's not the right thing to fear. Hey, before we head out, I want to once again thank our sponsor, their BPG Inspections. And I want to talk about the personal side of Martin Cooley, again, one of the guys that we use quite a bit. A lot of the inspectors scare the hell out of you, and they act like the entire house is just falling under, into the ground, and it's just awful. And they're CYA on everything. Well, go talk to an engineer. Go talk to this. One of the things I love about the inspector that we typically use at our client's choice is the fact his bedside manner is great. He'll let you know, hey, look, I'd be worried about this. If this one, I'd be like, I'm not so sure. Y'all, we had a great time. We'll talk about seller's disclosure probably in the next couple of weeks, though, because there's always more to talk about. Y'all have a great week. Go Niners, go KC. Take care.